Hello weekend warriors, welcome back to the workshop. Today's project, we're going to do a revisit on the router copy carver. I was doing some projects over the Christmas holidays and some ideas came to mind, so we made some changes, or I made some changes I should say, that make the tool a little bit more versatile, make it a little bit easier for me to use, and make it easier for me to store. And all these came to as great ideas to me. So I thought I'd share them with you today. So let me move the cameras around and we'll get to it. Hang on. Alright, we're back, and as you can see, we've got the copy carver in front of us here. Now, I was talking versatility to start with, and that versatility comes in the way of being able to mount more than one router in it. As you see, I've got my little Rockwell mounted here, and this was the only one that I could have mounted the old way. Well, this way, which is basically just, I've taken the cutter bed and I've turned it up 90 degrees. I then made two slots that would accommodate plumber's clamps. I just clamped the router in. Now it doesn't move around on me. It holds nice and tight and it does everything I want it to do. With this setup, I can use my rotary cutter. I can use my finish router. I could even readjust the holes a little bit that would let me put a little Dremel tool in there for doing finer work. So that makes me happy. And at the same time, for the cutter head, I made a cutter mount that of course is spaced equal distance from the center of the bit to the base of the bed. Well, the base of the bed to the center of the cutter head, so it's all nice and even. While I was at it, for doing signs, I put a handle on top of the cutter head that lets me move it from the center of the sled. Now, because I can move it from the center of the sled, I'm not pulling at an odd angle, which could do anything to pull me off center or anything like that. And I can screw this handle on. I can screw it off when I don't want to use it, or unscrew it, I should say. Screw it off, that just doesn't sound right. And so, like I said, a little bit more versatile, a little bit easier to use. Because when I'm working on signs, I'm working from the side here. And so if I'm trying to work just from here, there's a good chance I could pull the whole thing out of kilter. And I don't want to do that. So pulling from here and using my hand at the follower to follow the fine contours, it all works much better. Now let's take a look at some of the mechanical things I've done, and for that we're going to have to move the cameras a little bit. Alright, now the cameras are all set up where I need them to be, and we've already discussed the turning of the bed and the mounting of the router and the follower, and of course the handle. So now let's talk about the quick release I put on. Now when I'm making signs, I want the cutter head at a consistent angle, and I don't want to have to fight that angle by having a floating cutter head. So I installed a bicycle saddle quick release with just a small slot, enough that gives me a few degrees of motion, so I can change the cutter head angle as I want to and then lock it back up again. That easy. Unlocked and locked. It's a great cam device and holds things nice and tight, so the angle's not moving around on me. At the same time, I can pull the quick release completely out and still have a full 180 degrees of swing on the cutter head. So that's a good thing. I already talked about the handle, so let's go ahead and have a look at the router speed control. Now the router speed control allows me to turn the router on and off. I can set it to variable speed and vary the speed on the router. And once again, all this from working from the side of the copy carver. I'm not having to reach across to turn the router on and off. I don't have to get my hands anywhere near the router if I don't want to. And it also kind of saves on the router's cord. You see, this is kind of an old, flimsier cord, whereas the one I put onto the speed controller is a nice, heavy, full-length extension. So we got that. Now, the carriage itself. You'll notice there's no big plastic wheels left on here anymore. When I originally built it, I used just plastic caster wheels, and those worked fine for just doing the basic kind of carving I was doing. I wasn't trying to follow any real fine angle. But I found when I was trying to do signs that because I had been rocking the cutter head back and forth, I had worn some flat spots into the plastic, which when it came time to move across from time to time, I would get some binding, which you definitely don't want to have. So I went ahead and I replaced the plastic wheels with Rollerblades Z608 bearings, and I had 6 of them sitting around, so there's 3 on each side, just like there ought to be. I also changed the bottom bearing holder just slightly, but it makes it easier for me to adjust and snug it down or loosen it up if I need to. So, nice and easy. The cutter head moves nicely for me. No problems at all. Now let me come around here and swing my focus over a little bit. And finally, well, I shouldn't say finally, because there's still one more change I made, or 2 more changes I made to this. But this change, you might recall that the counterbalance arm was quite a bit longer. It was about 1 foot longer than it is now. And I had some bolts taped to the end of it, and that was fine for just using the Rockwell router. But if I'm going to be able to use other routers on here, I need to be able to change the balance weight. So I put a cup on the back, and this is just an old Nescafe container. Right now there's a 2.5 pound weight in it and a few 3/4 inch bolts. And so if I need to lighten it, I can just pull some weights out, or make it heavier, I can add the weight. But it balances quite nicely now, just with the cup. In addition, you'll notice, and let me do a quick pan down here. There we go. I originally had a big hunk of wood down here as my stiffener brace. Well, I changed that out, and I used basically the same mounting system I did with the original arm. Just a piece, in this case it's a piece of 1x2, that I used a 1 1/8 Forstner bit to cut an offset hole, enough that when I mount this, it sits up off the deck, and when I screw it down, it clamps down tight. So I changed it out to a pipe, so it's much easier to break down and store now. So moving on from there, I'll swing this guy back over here a little bit, and what you see behind here on the vertical slide or the slide chassis, I've put on a slide brake. Now, on the off chance that I do get a little bit overzealous and I try to pull it too sharp of an angle, this thing will hang up, and it won't let the router get out of control on me. It'll keep me from pulling it up too tight. And it also keeps the carriage from jumping off the rail. So just a little bit of a safety feature and something to save my sanity when I've been carving along and I make one mistake, I won't ruin the whole workpiece. The carriage itself, if we take a closer look at the carriage, there we go. The carriage itself hasn't changed at all. I'm still using the plastic wheels. I'm still using the same 8-inch hunk of 2x4 cut with the 35-degree angles on it. The only things that have changed are the addition of the brake and the different stiffener on the back. On the overall board, and let me zoom back a little bit for this. On the overall board, I have removed the towers. And I'm going to move that a little bit more again. See if I can zoom. I'm running out of battery power here. There we go. I've removed the towers and I laid my pipes directly down. Now what this has done for me, and you can see I'm holding them onto the bed of the table just with some bar clamps. I've got 4 bar clamps and 4 of those blocks that you see. Same thing I used to mount the pipes on the roller sled. So we got that going on. Oops. Let's zoom back out, shall we? All right, so overall, we've improved the heck, I think, out of the copy carver. Still hasn't cost us a ton of money to do. And it's great for carving signs or things that are a little bit lower. Now, if I had to carve something that was up off the bench, then I would add the towers back onto the bars. By the way, I've also eliminated the 30-inch table I had before. I only had 30 inches of back and forth, or forward and back slide, along with the 30 inches I've got side to side. So I guess we could call that y-axis and this x-axis. So I've moved my y-axis out to 48 inches. And if I wanted to widen my my x-axis, all I really have to do is change the bars. And it'll still function just like it does now. So that's about it. That's all I've got for you. Now, I do have one pleasant bit of news, and that is because of all these changes, I'm feeling more and more like this is more my design than anybody else's, which means I can create plans for it and give them away on the website. So that will be one of the next things that I do. In the meantime, I'm done. So y'all keep up the good fight, and next time I see you, we're going to demonstrate some sign carving. We're going to do a couple different fonts and see how fun and easy it is. So you take it easy, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.